When all the cards were on the table, and while we were in the process of divorce, my ex-wife, Lauren, told me what she was thinking when she began and continued seeing other men. We were on good terms by then. No bitterness, no anger. She had no reason to lie. If anything, she told me the truth so I might do a better job of finding a more compatible future wife for myself. We were still in our 20s, had no children, and I knew that I had a chance for a fresh start. So I appreciated the honesty. At least I tried to. We were sitting across from each other at a quiet cafe. It wasn't the place where we had our first date or anything meaningful, just neutral ground, a place where two people who once loved each other could pretend, for a moment, that what they had wasn't unraveling in front of them. She stirred her coffee, not looking at me. I didn't do it because I wanted the thrill of sneaking around Owen. I wasn't chasing the high of doing something forbidden. It wasn't about deception. I watched her closely, trying to hold back the emotions clawing their way up my throat. Then why? She sighed, finally meeting my gaze. I needed more. Physically, sexually. I wasn't getting what I needed from you. The words landed like a fist to my gut. I sat back, exhaling slowly. You told me you weren't happy. I remember that. But I thought we were making it work. She shook her head. We were trying. I was trying. But after a while, the workarounds didn't satisfy me. It wasn't enough. Her voice was calm, as if she had made peace with this truth long ago. So, you decided to find someone else who could? My voice sounded foreign to me. Flat, distant. Lauren didn't flinch. At first, it was just about sex, but then I realized I wanted more than just that. I wanted a connection that felt complete, and I knew I wouldn't find that with you. I should have been angry. I should have thrown my coffee in her face, stormed out, made a scene. But I just sat there, gripping my cup, my hands trembling slightly. I thought back to all the times I had tried to fix things, the conversations, the attempts at improving our intimacy. I had read articles, listened to podcasts, even gone to a therapist for advice on how to be a better lover. I had asked her, begged her, to tell me what she wanted, but she had always avoided answering directly. I had assumed it was just a rough patch, something every couple went through. I had told myself that love was enough, that effort was enough. But love didn't change biology, and effort couldn't force compatibility where it didn't exist. Lauren sighed, breaking me out of my thoughts. Owen, I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't keep pretending. I was miserable. I swallowed hard. And I wasn't enough for you. She looked down at her hands, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. No. There it was. The truth. The words that, even though I had suspected them for months, still cut deeper than anything I had ever felt before. I forced a nod. So when you found him, the right guy with the right size, you left. Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. Yes. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. The cafe felt too small, the air too thick. I needed to get out of there, away from her, away from the truth that was finally laid bare between us. I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table. I hope he was worth it. Lauren didn't stop me. She didn't call after me or try to explain further. She just watched as I walked away, and for the first time since this all began, I didn't care what she thought. And just like that, it was over. The cracks in our marriage had been there for a long time, but I had ignored them. Now, as I look back, they were impossible to miss. The nights when she turned away from me in bed, the way she hesitated before kissing me, the times she came home late, claiming she had been out with friends but avoiding eye contact when I asked about it. I had tried everything to make her happy in bed. I researched new techniques, read books on intimacy, watched instructional videos, and even suggested we explore fantasies she had hinted at. I made an effort to be more assertive, to last longer, to pay attention to what she responded to. But every time, I could feel her dissatisfaction lingering in the air afterward. She never said it outright, but it was there, in the way she sighed as she rolled away from me, in the way she stared at the ceiling, in the way she avoided my touch even when I reached for her in the morning. It's not you, she had told me once, lying in bed, her voice almost detached. I just need something else. I turned on my side looking at her. Then tell me what that is. She turned her head toward me, her eyes filled with something I couldn't quite name. Pity? Frustration? Maybe both. I don't think you can give it to me. Her words gutted me, but I pushed past the sting and kept trying. I bought her lingerie, planned romantic weekends away, tried spontaneous passion. Nothing worked. She was slipping away from me, and I was too blind, or maybe too desperate, to see it for what it was. I didn't know then that she had already found what she wanted somewhere else. I found out about him 6 months before she left. His name was Daniel. He worked at her office. Tall, athletic, confident. Everything I wasn't. At first it was subtle. The way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The extra effort she put into her appearance before work. New dresses, a different shade of lipstick, perfume I hadn't smelled before. She used to throw on whatever was clean, barely brushing her hair before heading out the door. Now she stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the neckline of her blouse, tilting her head to examine herself from every angle. When I asked if she had a big meeting or a presentation, she'd shrug and say, just another day at the office. Then came the excuses, working late, weekend, team-building events, sudden meetings that went on for hours. The final confirmation came one night when I returned home from a business trip a day early. I was supposed to be in Chicago until Friday, but the conference wrapped up sooner than expected, and I caught the first flight home. I didn't tell Lauren. I wanted to surprise her. I remember feeling excited as I pulled into the driveway. Maybe we could have a late dinner, open a bottle of wine, reconnect. But as soon as I stepped into our house, something felt off. The air was thick, warm, as if someone had been there just moments ago. The faint scent of cologne, not mine, lingered in the air, mixing with something more primal. I walked up the stairs slowly, my pulse hammering against my ribs. The bedroom door was half open, the sheets rumpled in a way that didn't make sense. Then I saw it, a man's watch on the nightstand, a sleek, expensive piece, definitely not mine. I stepped closer, picking it up, feeling the weight of it in my hands as my stomach twisted. The mattress still held an imprint that wasn't mine. I knew then, without a doubt, that my wife had brought another man into our bed. I stood there for what felt like hours, my mind racing. I wanted to deny it, to believe there was some explanation. Maybe it belonged to a coworker who had visited for some innocent reason. Maybe I was imagining things, but deep down, I already knew. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the sheets, gripping the watch so tightly my fingers ached. My breath came in shallow, uneven gasps. I thought about the years we had spent together, the laughter, the fights, the quiet moments of just existing together. How had we ended up here? When Lauren came home that night, I was waiting for her. I sat in the dimly lit living room, the watch placed neatly on the coffee table in front of me. She walked in, her expression shifting the moment she saw me. A flicker of surprise, then something else. Resignation. "Owen," she said, her voice careful. "You're home early." "Yeah," I said. "I am." She set down her purse and hesitated, her eyes darting to the watch. I watched as her shoulders tensed, as her fingers twitched at her sides. She knew, and she knew I knew. "Whose is it?" I asked, my voice quieter than I expected. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she let out a long, slow breath, as if she had been holding it in for months. "Owen, I need to be honest with you. I'm in love with him." The words were sharp, precise, like a blade sliding between my ribs. I stared at her, waiting for something, an apology, an explanation, some sign of guilt. But there was nothing, just a quiet acceptance, like she had already mourned the end of our marriage long before this moment. "How long?" I asked, my voice tight. "A year," she admitted. "A year. 12 months. 52 weeks. Every moment we had spent together in that time had been a lie. Every kiss, every touch, every whispered, 'I love you.'" I let out a dry, humorless laugh. "You didn't even try to hide it, did you?" "I did at first," she said, "but after a while it didn't matter. I knew this was where it was heading." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I had built a life with, the woman I had tried so hard to please. And I realized then that she had already moved on. She had been living in a different reality, while I clung to the illusion of what we used to be. You should have told me, I said finally, before you brought him into our bed, before you made me feel like a fool. She swallowed hard, but she didn't argue. I know. Silence stretched between us, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to break something, to demand why I wasn't enough, but I already knew the answer. Are you leaving? I asked after a while. She nodded. I think it's for the best. And just like that, it was over. Not with a fight, not with angry words or broken dishes, just a quiet agreement that the love we had was gone. Lauren moved out a few weeks later. She didn't fight me over the apartment or our shared belongings. It was almost as if she had already detached herself from me long before I had even known the truth. The divorce process was quick, painless, at least on paper. But every time I signed a document, it felt like I was carving out pieces of myself and handing them away. After the papers were finalized, there were no more texts, no more check-ins. Lauren had moved on completely, and I was left standing in the wreckage of what once was. There was no friendship, no forced pleasantries, just absence. I sat alone in our empty apartment, staring at the bare walls, letting the weight of everything settle in. I wasn't sure how long it would take to heal, or if I ever truly would. But for the first time since she told me the truth, I let myself accept it. She was gone, and I had to find a way to move forward without her.